What is going on, everyone? Chris with Journals, Comics, and Pop Culture. Today's video is my personal thoughts regarding the ongoing situation with CGC and Banana Ben Gate. They released a statement yesterday. I'm not just going to make a video discussing all of those details. We have Swaggle video up on screen, guys. If you haven't watched this video, I am going to voice my opinion on a specific matter, though. And we're going to address something that Swaggle said in his video that I'm going to dive into to try to expand this conversation. Before we get into it, if you aren't subscribed to the channel, please take some time to do so. Check out the links in the description below, and let's get into this. So again, if you haven't seen any videos from any YouTubers that address CGC's response to the inner well bending comic books, go check out Swaggle video right here that he released yesterday, I believe. CGC issues update and statement on Ben Gate's situation. It isn't good. I agree heavily with everything Swag says in this video. I'm going to play about 20 seconds of what he said, though. And it's not necessarily that I disagree with him, but I think it's such a good statement in perspective that I wanted to dive deeper into it and kind of challenge this state of where the industry and community, as us as consumers and collectors, are at when it comes to CGC in the graded comic market. I left a comment, and we're going to read that comment after we play this clip. Swag is reading comments on a Facebook post that showcased CGC's response, which is just utterly ridiculous. It really is. But let's see what Swag says, reading off this comment right here, and then we're going to go into it.
None of it matters. It's their 4th to 6th major F up, and the idiots still use them blindly. The people to blame are the goofs still using CGC. They'll never change because they don't have to. No, I have issue with this. I actually think that the people are not idiots for using CGC. It just is the thing that clearly people should do. If their goal is to, preserve value or to get the highest return if they decide to sell a book. I mean, that is just true. You would be a fool to not use CGC in this current situation. And don't misunderstand me here. I am not defending, Ben Gate or Reholder Gate or all of these situations. I'm just calling it like it is. I'm being a realist here. I mean, there's a reason why people continue to use CGC. And again, like I said, until the institutions change, nothing will change.
So, kind of a lot to take in there, but basically what Swag is saying is straight up, I mean, it's pretty clear. They're not stupid, even with all this going on. People aren't stupid for using CGC still. Why? Because simply stated, any book on the market is going to get a higher return on your investment based on, obviously, the grade. If you have a 9.8 X-Men #1 from 1990 in CGC, and you have one in CBCS or PJX or even EGS at this point, any other grading company, you are still going to maximize your return by that 9.8 book being in a CGC slab with the CGC label. And none of these issues, none of these gates, Banana Gate, none of that matters. And he said, don't get me wrong, I'm not, condoning what's going on. So you kind of agree with them because they're not stupid necessarily if they want to maximize their return on investment. Now, I do have a response to that, but I like how he said in the end, though, until the institutions change. All right, we're going to come to that. But let's read my comment. I'm going to challenge you at your 11-minute mark about people sending books to CGC still being the smart thing to do. Yes, sending books to CGC will still maximize your profits even with all of these gates going on. But to me, it isn't necessarily the smart thing to do. It's the lazy and impatient thing to do. What do I mean by this? In business, your business model shouldn't be simply built on how you can maximize profits at any means. Why? Because every business depends on consumers, and consumers become consumers when the consumer's needs are met. A business meets those needs by not only supplying a quality product, but by building trust, which is built on a business model that holds ethics at its core. So, Where am I going with this? Dealers should stop thinking about a quick extra 15% profit margin on their slabs right now for that quick buck and start looking at long-term revenue. Take the hit. Switch over to CBCS or PSA at this point and take the loss. Well, actually, it's not a loss. It's still a gain, just a smaller gain. Speak with your purchasing power in order to evolve the industry that we work and coexist in. The market will even out and or it will force CGC and its competitors to become better in their own right. Imagine if this was cars or steel, and actually this has happened with the steel industry. We've had similar incidences where we've outsourced our steel, to get steel from China or, a cheaper steel imported into the U.S. Why? Because it's cheaper and we want to maximize our profits. And then what happens? We put profits over quality and bridges start collapsing and people die. This has actually happened. Now, no one here is dying from a bent comic book, but still, you get what I'm saying. So those steel companies are, our infrastructure is going to now, even though those that quick instantaneous higher profit, to make that quick buck. Well, what does that do to public perception now? Now we're afraid to drive on our infrastructure, etc. So there's bigger long-term detriments in companies thinking solely on that quick buck right now. And what that is with CGC is, and somebody else commented this on Swag's video, the more we take this approach, okay, the more we take this approach, the more that these type of bend gates and case gates are going to happen because CGC thinks they're infallible. And we're just going to keep giving them our money because the market brings us a higher value. And basically, it's going to erode any type of quality, trust, ethics, any bit of that foundation is going to erode. And it's going to keep getting worse. That's my opinion. But let me finish off here. If I was slabbing comics to sell using cost-benefit analysis, I would be very concerned with the risks in sending my books to CGC and getting a 9.8 that won't sell at a 9.8 due to the damages. I would rather risk getting a 9.8 with CBCS that is a true 9.8 and selling it for 50% less than a CGC would. And honestly, this year, I ended my CGC, this is fact, I ended my CGC membership and I sent books to EGS. And I think all of those books will be up for sale except for 3 of them. The time is now. We need to speak with our wallets and our bank accounts and hold CGC accountable and stop being so fixated on the quick fix of adding a few extra bucks in our pockets simply because of the market. So I actually even had a conversation with Swag because I reached out to him about me wanting to do this video and using his clip. And, he even reiterated, and I think that's where you go to his last statement that he said, and still until the institutions change. So what am I talking about here? I'm talking about sellers. I'm talking about dealers, talking about anybody on the resale market, right? I'm not necessarily talking about like an individual collector that might not think about selling his comic book right away. He's holding long term. Maybe he wants to pass it down to his kids, but he cares about the value. And that's why he sends off some of his books to get graded and slabbed. So this individual might still be thinking about sending it to CGC because he cares about maximizing that value. And he's just one ant or one grain of sand on a beach. What is his protest going to do? What is his protest going to do? And it's kind of like voting, right? In our democratic process, so many people think, well, my vote doesn't matter if I just don't vote. But then we start perpetuating that, one vote, if 1,000 people think that one vote won't change anything, then that's 1,000 votes that won't change anything. But yet 1,000 votes together, if one person by one person starts changing their perception, that 1,000 votes now can change something. But I understand that it's tough to get to that point. But it's like, until it's up to these big dealers, these large dealers and sellers in these big institutions to start making that change, to alleviate the anxiety for the small collector. Heritage auctions, right? You know, Comic Link, like GPA only looking at CGC books, you know, Comic Connect, like all of these institutions, the auction houses, they all need, in my humble opinion, to start shifting the focus away from CGC, because the market is only like this out of fear. We are sitting with our hands behind our backs in terms of fear that we're going to lose a quick buck. Now, I understand for the institutions, it might not just be for fear, because this is kind of like, if you go back to the government or politician argument, you know, it's kind of like special interests, and where's the money going? Where's the hands in the pockets of the politicians and the bureaucrats? And you know, it's like, you know, politicians being elected and, you know, bringing on the head of Monsanto to run the FDA. That's a conflict of interest right there, because obviously the FDA regulates Monsanto. So when you got Heritage Auction and Comic Connect and all these industry entities that are, you know, cuddled up with CGC, where does that leave, you know, room for them to get off their hands and change anything? But I still believe, and again, right now, even outside of the auction houses and all those in GPA and all those individuals, I hold the dealers accountable. Because if we start flooding, if you look at the dealers that are even like that are LCS owners, or maybe they're online dealers, right? Like, I'll use Dave from Comic Book Investments, just because I know he's a big online dealer, and he has a YouTube channel. So, you know, he's out there. His voice is influential in this comic community. And I look at him as somebody that could sit here and say, look, we sell a lot of inventory and a lot of slabs, from golden age to modern age books. And I don't know what his inventory is. I don't watch his channel like that, and I don't, you know, visit his website or follow him like that. But if he came out and said, we're going to start shifting our inventory over to CBCS. I think even Red Hood, there's a big online, there's two Red Hoods in this community, but it's a Red Hood. I do believe that's the name, Red Hood. That I think this was about a little over a year ago, where he was like, I'm done with CGC. I'm going to start going to CBCS. I might take a little bit of a loss. If you get individuals like that, to where it's like they could take that hit, that 15% hit, still, you know, profit enough to flood the market now with CBCS books rather than CGC. You start going to cons, and you see more dealers at cons with a large majority of CBCS books rather than CGC. Are we as consumers going to almost be forced to get off our hands and to start slowly but surely making more purchases that are CBCS, simply because there's more CBCS out there now? And once that starts happening, what's that going to do to the change in the public perception, the consumer's perception, which in turn is the market? You start putting more of it out there on the market, taking less of CGC off the market. What is that going to force the auction houses to do? What is that going to force GPA to do? Cover Price is already doing it. They institute CBCS sales in their sales data. And I guarantee you that fear that we are sitting in, that fear of, oh my gosh, I can't stop sitting on my hands. I don't care how bad it gets. I mean, CGC, one thing after another. And I don't want anybody going in the comments and saying, Chris, you're just a CGC hater. Go back. I even have a graded a playlist, all things graded comics or something like that. Go back and watch all of my videos. I have defended CGC. I have been hard on CGC. I've just had my honest opinions back and forth. I still was a CGC customer until this year. And now, as I said in this comment, I don't have no faith because I'm scared that my books are going to be damaged. And I'm not sending my books to any company to where I really fear that my books are going to be damaged. I am not simply a CGC hater. I, even right now, hope and pray that CGC changes their ways, because that's the best thing that the graded comic book industry can have, is the big two and even the three or the four, these other little ones coming up. Hey, PGX, I still said, I'm not going to send any books to them, but they can still change their ways to convince me otherwise. I have books at EGS right now. I want every player in the game to stay in the game, and I want us to evolve. 25 years of a graded industry. The grading industry, the slab industry, is a baby still. It's an infant. There is still room for everyone to evolve before it all comes crumbling down. We as an industry, we as collectors, we as dealers, as sellers, as LCS owners, and as big-time industry institutions like these auction houses, GPA, Go Collect, Cover Price, we all need to say, we have to make a stand. We have to make a stand so that way we hold CGC and all of the grading companies accountable to solidifying what they promise. And what they promise is a certified grade. And included in that should be a level of trust and quality. That when our comic books come back in those slabs, that little sticker in that top left corner means something still. And for the institutions and for the sellers and the dealers to take this stand, it's going to allow us as collectors and consumers to be a little more at ease and less in this anxiety of worrying about, oh my gosh, if I switch to CBCS or somebody else, it's going to impact my value of my comic collection so greatly. The time is now. The time is now. Folks, thank you so much for watching. I want to hear your thoughts in the comments below. And again, guys, go check out Swag's video. He's done a great job following this topic. Automatic Comics has another solid video. I know 9.9 Newsstand has been discussing this topic, so a lot of other videos out there for you guys to check out to get more of that, the details of actually what's been going on over the last few months. Thank you all so much for watching. Be well, and until next time.